Okay, let's make sure our cell phones are off. Okay, one of the things that's really on the forefront of everything we do with NAPS is our legislative efforts. They're being attacked on a large number of fronts, but we definitely hold our own. I've asked for Jim Pettis and Gary Townson to put on a little presentation in an effort to help with our grassroots efforts. And they're going to give you some guidelines as to how to best plan your trips to LTS, to the actual hill. Give you a few pointers about how to do Cap With, what we offer on our website for legislative. And certainly do Q&A if you got any questions about any of the processes that are in place. So please welcome Gary and Jim.
Thank you. Is this on? I don't hear it.
No, I didn't.
It's not.
Switch. Yes.
No, it's still not. One more time?
No.
Okay.
I knew it was gone.
I'm going to give you just a little bit of a walkthrough on basically what we do in order to communicate with legislators in D.C. The job of preparation for a trip to Washington, D.C. to call on our legislators in mid-March and early April begins in mid-January. As soon as National has decided on the topics we will be taking to Capitol Hill, the effort of scheduling the appointments begins. You need to speak to the scheduler, and a good share of the time your call will be transferred to their voicemail. You leave them a message giving them the basics as well as your name and phone number for them to contact you. As a general rule, the scheduler will request the information faxed or emailed to them. I have my email prepared prior to the first phone call. The information they want, the name of the organization, the date you wish to meet with them, the topics you wish to discuss, the names of all the delegates who are going to attend, and where the delegate lives. Some members of the House do not want to, quote, waste their time with folks that can't vote for them. I've learned to map out a time frame for each meeting prior to making the calls. That way I can suggest what time we would like to make the appointment. Calling that early in the year, we usually can get the times we request. If we need to change things around, it's good to know as early in the process as possible. It's best to allow 30 minutes for each appointment, knowing that we will only get about 10 to 15 minutes with the aide, but probably will have to wait in order to get in to meet with them. Some schedulers are very friendly and some try to be aloof. Some will arrange the appointments the same day I submit it, others wish to procrastinate and not confirm the meeting for over a month. The Senate offices are a good 2 city blocks away from the buildings where the House of Representatives are. For that reason, I try to schedule both senators' appointments back to back. There are 4 buildings on the House side of the Capitol Hill. You can find out in advance the building where each of our representatives is. My time frame planning sheet takes the locations into consideration when I suggest times for the meetings. The buildings are all multi-story and difficult to get around, so if at all possible, schedule the appointments by building. In my communication with the aide, I provide the name of the hotel where we will stay, the date I will arrive, and my cell phone number. I have had occasions where I've been called while meeting with a lawmaker from another office advising a conflict and wishing to reschedule for a different time that day. The vast majority of the time you will not meet with a senator or representative, but will meet with the aide handling a specific type of situation. Healthcare, Social Security, postal, they all have their areas of expertise. Although it is nice to see the big guy or gal, the aides are the ones that actually can usually talk most intelligently about the bill we're concerned with. As soon as I get the specifics on the points we will be talking about, I email a copy of that to each aide. Doing this serves as a confirmation of the appointment as well as allowing them to prepare for the meeting. At this meeting, be sure to get the business cards of whomever you meet with. Do not allow the meeting to be sidetracked with conversation about trivial things. That basketball game or tournament, the weather, where's everybody from, oh, I've been there, stay on topic. They will do their best to dance around so they don't have to make specific commitments. Upon returning home, always send a thank you to whomever you meet with. With their business card, you now have their email address. If they made commitments to get a bill co-sponsored or to look up some information, remind them of this. If you told them you'd check on something and get back with them, be sure you do. If you contact them frequently and establish your credibility, they may contact you with inquiries. This has happened to me on numerous occasions. We also have a time when the legislators are back home, and we have some pointers on communicating with them at home. There are many ways to find out the specifics of the dates. Most legislators have a state scheduler as well as one that takes care of their appointments in D.C. They all have local, sometimes several offices in different towns. They publish the locations and telephone numbers of these offices. Call one well in advance of the date you wish to schedule and determine who is responsible for setting up appointments locally. Advise this person of when you would like to meet with the lawmaker, what the reason is for your meeting, approximately how many people you anticipate on attending, and where you wish to meet. Sometimes it takes several tries to successfully schedule a meeting. If you are successful in getting a meeting scheduled, follow up with a confirmation to the office by phone, email, or both to make sure you are all in sync. The largest obstacle to getting a group meeting is getting members to overcome their apathy. Just like running for office in the branch, it's always easier to let someone else do it. You need to explain to the members how important it is for politicians to have a positive feeling towards us. Anything Congress gives, Congress can take away. It's nice to have one or two people dealing with the legislator, but politicians count votes. Several constituents translate to several potential votes. One person can call a senator or congressman and tell them how many members we have in our local branch or the state, but if the members don't care enough to attend the meeting, they probably won't care enough to vote. Once you get your group willing to attend, it's necessary to brief them. They need to understand that the purpose of the meeting is to get something positive from the lawmaker. It's very easy to be tempted to stray away from the goals of the meeting and begin relating long, pointless anecdotes that eat up time. Politicians love it when this happens because that helps them avoid answering the tough questions or from having to make commitments. Volunteering some time for their campaign is a good way to establish a positive rapport. Money is important to any campaign, but manpower is priceless. This could be something as simple as helping with a mailing, walking in parades, or delivering yard signs. Things like this don't cost much and can pay large dividends. If your meeting schedule coincides with their visit to the state, it's a great time to invite them to your branch meeting. If you are successful in doing this, brief your members beforehand not to eat up time with trivia. In a primary election for a national office, if there are several people running for office, try to get as many of them as possible to attend your meeting. If you accomplish this, contact any of your branches and invite them to attend your meeting. For a House of Representatives competition, only invite those branches that are in the same congressional district. Be very careful not to fall into the trap of only inviting candidates with the political party you sympathize with. We must maintain our nonpartisan stance as a body. We need the help from every elected legislator. Our goal is to have whomever is elected have positive feelings for us. Always notify and invite the other members of the state board to the meeting. Remember, the more faces a politician sees, the more votes they anticipate. If you cannot get a meeting scheduled, be alert to town hall meetings held near you. Get other members to attend. Have polite but important questions ready to ask. Let me repeat that word, polite. They don't know, nor do they care if you have a PhD or a GED. It's tough for them to tell if you're smart or just being a smartass. So you have to continue to be polite, even if you are taking a position opposite to their position. If you're able to get a face-to-face meeting, be sure to follow up with an acknowledgement. It's best to mail communications to the local office, as mail in Washington is still delayed and irradiated. The acknowledgement is best handled if you have legible writing to give it a handwritten note. Because if you take the time to actually sit down and write something out, that spells a lot more involvement, a lot more interest on your part than if you just have a typewritten, computer-generated, possibly even a form note. So, legislative training seminars are extremely important. The next one is scheduled for March 9 through 12 of 2014. So right now is the time to start planning in order to be able to make it. These things are not cheap, but at the same time, they are very valuable. They pay lots of dividends. I have copies of what I just covered that I will be giving to you so that you can take them back for your local branches. Jim?
Gary pretty much touched on the polite part. I'll touch on the smart ass part. Because I'm kind of known for that. We talked about making the appointments. That's probably one of the most irritating parts of the LTS than anything else. You've got congressmen and senators that you contact all the time. Our Congressman Sam Graves in the 6th District of Missouri, as soon as I sent out my requests to the schedulers, that email hadn't even hit their desk 5 minutes, and Buffy Smith, I swear to God that's her name, from his office called me up and set up the appointment. Then you have the others like Billy Long of Southern Missouri, who had no intention of ever meeting with us until the word got out that they were going to close the Springfield plant. And all of a sudden they got interested. So setting up the appointments is probably the most irritating and rewarding part of the LTS. Getting into the buildings, as Gary had stated, is somewhat interesting. The security is very high. Some of us that have prosthetic limbs get strip searched and all that good stuff, so that's, other than that, it's not too bad. But anyway, there's several bills that are going on right now. If you're lucky enough to be on that mailing list that I send out all that stuff, I send out stuff constantly. The Senate bill that we're need to worry about right now is S-316. That's the Postal Service Protection Act, and the House bill is 630. Right now there's one co-sponsor in the Mink area that is signed on from the Senate side, and that's Tom Harkin from Iowa.
What's the House bill number?
House bill number is 630. And currently from on the House side, there are 4 co-sponsors, two from Iowa, 2 from Missouri, and none from Kansas and Nebraska. I send out that stuff if I have your personal email address. I send out stuff all the time on legislative stuff. Sometimes I send out stuff on personal items. I sent one out just lately concerning trusts and wills that sometimes most of us don't even think about. But I recently had a close friend of ours that passed away and had no will, no trust, and it's a mess. So I sent that out real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get on the website. A lot of times you'll get messages, and I'll forward messages out from Bruce Moyer about getting on CapWiz and sending a message to your congressmen and your senators. It is the easiest thing in the world to do. It takes a matter of 30 seconds to do it. If you get on the NAP's website, let's see if I can get on here.
Just wait for it to find it.
Just
Is it looking?
touch the mouse. Just,
Did you press
there you
it?
go.
Yeah, it'll-
There you go. If you get to the NAP's website, you can go right up here to Legislative Center, go to the drop down to CapWiz, open that up, and it'll show where this Take Action box will show the latest ones that we're talking about. Here's 630. 1431, 686 is the MSPB rights. We've got a couple of bills in Congress right now that are trying to get MSPB rights for all EAS employees. There's some support with that, not a whole lot, and that's one of the reasons why we can go in here, click on that, and it'll say, okay, we can contact Congress, and it essentially, I'm not sure what it is. It essentially gives you a message that the verbiage is all there. You don't have to write anything. All you have to do is go to the bottom, fill out your name, your email address, your address. The zip code is very important, especially when it comes to the congressman, because that tells them what district it's going to go to. And once you've filled this out on your own personal computer, not the one at the post office, but your personal computer, it'll save that information for you. So every time you go in there, it just fills it in. You go down here to the bottom, hit send message. It sends you a confirmation to your email address. And for the most part, and I've got copies of mine here, you'll get responses, the majority of the time, you'll get responses from your representatives and your senators probably within a day or two. And it's pretty much generic, a reply that, is pretty vague, because they're not going to want to be tacked down on anything. But a lot of times what I do is when that stuff comes out from Bruce Moyer, I send that information, I email it back to the aides that we had met with. And I try to keep that communication line open with those aides all year round. It's real tough for us to contact them in January, and it's the first time they heard from us since the April before. So it's extremely important. Gary and I and Deb Powell from St. Louis, who's our state legislative chair, when we contact them, we're only one person. We can sit there and tell them that we represent constituents, which is a threat sometimes. In the case of Billy Long, I told you about Billy Long never wants to talk to us until they start talking about closing the Springfield plant. He didn't, when I was setting up the appointments this year, they didn't even want to talk to us because of that anyway. I had about 6 or 7 phone calls, 6 or 7 emails, never a reply, and I finally just sent a message back to him and said, not a problem if you don't want to meet with us. I don't have an issue with that at all. I'll be more than happy to, we're having a state meeting in another month, and I have no problem just informing all of the constituents that are going to be there from your area that you just didn't want to meet with us.
Perfect.
An hour later, I got a phone call. Well, sure, Jim, we'll be glad to meet with you. Not a problem.
So sorry.
It's not a big deal. Information on the bills, the website, the government website is thomas.gov. Very simple, thomas.gov. It puts you in, it'll take you to a website. That website, you can look up all the bills. You find out who the co-sponsors are. It gives you a bill summary. This is the one for 630. It shows right now that there are currently, let me get my glasses, 146 co-sponsors. It tells you which ones are actually the co-sponsors. If you want to read the verbiage of the bill, it's in there too. It's a great asset for us to try to, if we need more information about the current bills and what's going on, that's a great website to go to. Every congressman and every senator have their own websites. You can look up if you have an issue of you're not sure exactly who your congressman is. I know in Missouri they just redistrict everything last what was it, 2 years ago they did that? Yeah.
Year and a half.
Year and a half ago. Sam Graves, that had the northwest corner of Missouri, now stretches all the way across the north side. And a lot of the redistricting of the 5th district with Cleaver and Hartsel They had issues with that where you could be living on one street, the people across the street from you are in one district and you're in another. So that's one of the reasons why the zip code is helpful, but the breakdown is actually by your address and zip code. So that will help you figure out who your representative is, and you can actually get that information from thomas.gov too. If you wish to get more information from me, somewhat on a daily basis, you can give me your personal email address and I'll add you to the list. I try to send that out under a blind copy so I don't blurt out everybody's personal email addresses. I try to keep it as clean as possible as far as, like I said, I generally only send out legislative stuff. Occasionally I send out something that on the personal note, like that will and trust thing. Any information that comes out about the post office, I try to continue to send that out. Anything that has to do with our benefits and that kind of thing, I send that out. There's actually a bill in Congress right now that we need to watch, and that is HR 1780, which affects your health benefits. And that is a bill, it's probably not going to go anywhere, but it's a bill to eliminate, to help eliminate the federal employees health benefits program, so they can lump you all into the Obama health care.
Isn't that bill just to kind of make a point?
Yeah, like I said, it's probably not going to go anywhere, but it's, you know, it's kind of like a lot of things that are going on with Congress right now. They're not doing anything. You know, whatever your personal issues are, let me throw this out. Whatever your personal issues are, your personal issues. That's between you and whoever. But it's like the gun bill right now. If all the polls are saying that 80 to 90% of the American people support it, but Congress voted it down. And the reason they voted it down is because the people they hear from is the loud minority. If we don't tell them what we want and what we need, they're never going to give it to us. It's one of the reasons why the postal bill, the postal protection bill, is not doing anything right now. They rarely do anything for us until it's an absolute crisis situation. That's probably the reason why they won't do anything about the post office until probably August or September or October. And what they'll do then, Lord only knows. Unless we inform them of what we feel we need. Like I said, Gary and I are in one voice. I know the guys up in DC do a lot of work. Bruce Moyer does a ton of work. But every one of us can be a lobbyist. Even though we are under the Hatch Act, well, you guys are. We're not. Even though you may be under the Hatch Act, you can still write your congressman as many times as you want. You can still tell them how you feel. You can still ask them to support the post office. You don't have to worry about that as far as a Hatch Act violation.
The SNAPS representatives can't. Is it two separate things for postal employees and for NAPS?
No, the Hatch Act is because you're a federal employee. And, but you're still a U.S. citizen, you're still, you know, that person is still supposed to be representing you. I send them heated letters all the time when I start hearing about highly paid lobbyists controlling their votes that don't live in our state, don't live in our districts. So why are you listening to them? Money. And that leads to SPAC. You need to, if you want to, you know, a lot of us just donate to SPAC at our monthly meetings. We do it here. Some Some of us go online. You can actually go online and do a payroll deduction. As retirees, you can do payroll deductions. They've got that set up to where you can go through and get that set up. So it just comes right out of your annuity. It's very important that we support SPAC so we can get our voices heard in Washington too. So, any questions?
One other bill, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Gary?
As far as these letters to your representatives, the email messages, if you're getting Bruce Moyer's message, you don't even have to go into the NAP's homepage.
Right.
There will be a link in his message that you can click on that will take you to the letter, and you just basically send. Now, some of these letters will also require you to select an issue before it will send the message out. And so I guess that's directed to a particular person, in their office, but the question is a lot of times, what is the issue that really applies to it?
Government affairs is the one I generally check all the time. They list, under those issues, they list about 300 of them. We just did get a notice from Bruce Moyer that I sent out, I think yesterday morning. I sent it out to my mailing list. And that's this one? And I think at the bottom of it, it also has, go ahead, I'm all the way down the bottom, I think it's got it on there. No, it doesn't. Normally he has, if it is something that he's got a letter set up in CapWiz for us to send to our congressmen and senators, it's already on that link is already on there, but you can always go to the NAP's website and see if it's on there too.
The only thing is, like I said, it's something you will have to select an issue before this go out.
Yeah. And like I said, normally I just check government affairs.
There is another bill that has been recently introduced that has an impact on the majority of the retirees, and that's the one about repealing GPOWEP. Once again, this bill had to be introduced under a new number because it was not introduced as a continuing bill. But we have HR 1795 and we have S 896, the House and the Senate bills, that would give us all of the Social Security that we're entitled to, instead of reducing our benefits simply because of the fact that we get a retirement check from the federal government. And I know a lot of us work private industry in addition to working for the post office, and they took out all of our Social Security, but they only give us back a piece of it. So this is one of those bills that even if you're not retired, it still can have an impact on you soon, because retirement will come faster than you think. But I have to reiterate one thing that Jim said, and that was about scheduling. Some of those schedulers are just a jewel, and others are a real pain. They're terrified to make a decision, so they procrastinate. But I had one that this was the last time that I saw her, was when I was up there in April, because of the fact she's retiring at the end of this year. And I've been working with this young lady, was young when I started working with her 20-some years ago, when Pat Roberts was a member of the House of Representatives. And she worked as his scheduler for so many years. We've become personal friends. So when I went up this time, I took a little retirement gift for her. But these are things that you develop a rapport over the years with these people. And this GPOWEP bill that is in the House, I sent out emails to each one of the members of the House of Representatives that serve Kansas. And the way I do that is because you're blocked from sending an email to someone outside of your congressional district a lot of times because they only want to take mail from their constituents. They list it by zip code, and if your zip code's not in the area, it's blocked. But I have the email of each one of those aides that we met with, so I send them the email on this. I sent it to my personal Congressman Pompeo's office, sent it to his legislative director, and within 10 minutes, I had a note back from him, an email, wanting to know if the bill had been scored yet, which comes from the Congressional Budget Office. And it hasn't been scored, it probably won't be scored, it probably a bill will not gain traction, because it would add to the deficit, in theory, to give us the money that we paid in that we're entitled to. But you have to be legislatively involved, because, like I said, what anything Congress gives you, they can take away from you.
Currently, that bill, 1795, has only got 38 co-sponsors and only one co-sponsor from the Mink area, from Iowa. So, we got a lot of work.
Kelly?
I just have a comment. How many people in the room are still working? How many of those same people have contacted your congressional person in your area? I'm telling you right now, if you've never been involved in congressional issues, legislative issues, and you're currently working, you need to. And you need to be mentoring everybody around you about how to go about doing this, because there isn't any change that's going to happen in the post office from now into the future that's not going to happen through Congress. And I'll tell you, if the PMG has his way, it's possible that half the people in this room could get like their salaries cut, have their benefits cut, and all that sort of stuff if you don't pay attention to this. They'll just sneak something on in there, and if we're not listening and we're not telling our congressperson, no, 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 well then they haven't heard your voice, your one voice, and in this room, those one voices are about 25 of us right here in this room. That's 25 people that they don't know say, no, that's a bad idea. I mean, it's really, really important. And just to give you an example of how, just sitting on your hands and saying, well, I don't need to be involved, I'm just one person. Well, as you know, one person added up together makes a lot of people. They made a CFR change in, because we have a number of postmasters in here. They made a CFR change 2 years ago that stated in there, originally the language said that only a postmaster could run a post office. And the Postal Service put this little survey out that said they want to change the language to anybody could run a post office. Clerk, carrier, rural carrier, anybody could run a post office. They put the survey out, and guess what happened with the survey? Well, part of it was that, we were educating people, but people weren't paying attention to what that language really meant, all right? Which was the elimination of a postmaster position. That's essentially what that language was all about. Do you know how many people responded to the survey? We've got 23,000 post offices in this country. 342 people responded to the survey. Of that, 42 of them were congressmen. Very, very significant. You have to pay attention to the little things that are happening, little, innuendos that come out that you hear on, you see it on the news link. Those little things that tell you something's going on, or somebody gets a new vice president job at headquarters. It all means something now. So you really need to pay attention, and you really need to get to know your congressional people, because they will listen to you. And your vote does mean something to them. For those that are working one place, let's say you're on a border community, like I'll use myself as an example. I live in Kansas, and I work in Liberty. As far as my Liberty, Missouri congressional people, I am just as valuable to them because I have contact with lots of people. And as a postmaster in my community, I go on their website and I tell them all the things that I have an issue with. And as a Kansas constituent, I go on their website and tell them everything that I care about. Very, very important. And what Gary says is if you establish a relationship with them, they start calling you. Okay, we saw this come out from your Postmaster General. What does that mean to you as an employee in the post office? Very, very important information to them because they need to know both sides of the house. And your voice is very, very significant to that. And I think it's our job to mentor people, just keep mentoring everybody around us. That, it's not any longer that you have to leave that to just the leaders in the room. Everybody has to be involved in that part of their job. So it's just my comments.
Any other questions? Thank you. Yes, Court.
I have one. This is more on national. It's just my personal thought that we talk about lobbyists all the time and money. Does NAFTA ever think of doing probably he's the one that's gonna crush us or lift us. Do we ever think about throwing away money, even though we may disagree with him, maybe to try to persuade him? You know, they do it a lot.
He doesn't want our money.
No, but I know that. But if I was a big corporation, you know, I'm throwing
Yeah.
lobbyists to get my thing. We can give it to 100 people like here, Glenn Jenkins and Topeka. But if Daryl Issa tells her to vote, she's gonna vote his way more than likely.
That's part of the issue that
Craig,
we're up
what's the
against
issue
right now.
Yeah, but Naps has given money to those who have been such
Yeah, I mean, you
They
know.
said it had been Jay and then said they were next to him, got a chance to talk to them. So they go sometimes just to give you this.
I'm just wondering, yeah, if we do that, because I know.
Let
They
me,
did that, I believe, last year.
since you mentioned ISA, let me give you a little sidebar on ISA. When the 5-day delivery thing was going on and the postmaster said, we're gonna do 5-day, by God, we're gonna do it, I don't care. And then the Board of Governors came back and said, no, you can't. And Congress said, no, you can't. It's part of the, you can't do that. Not without our approval. And Donahoe backed down. ISA came out and said how disappointed he was that Donahoe did not violate the law and just make it 5-day and say to hell with Congress. That's who ISA is.
But the way
When
our,
he tells the Postmaster General, why didn't you just go ahead and violate the law?
but the way our PAC runs is that people have to apply. A politician has to apply for PAC funds. And then they will evaluate whether this is somebody that's our deadly enemy and that we're not going to want to try to help, or if it's somebody that we want to support. And then if there are local events, they prefer for one of us to attend a local event with a contribution from headquarters, from SPAC, instead of them all just going to Washington, D.C. events. They attend a lot of Washington events, like Craig said, but they also will send the funds out if we know that somebody's having a fundraiser that we can go to and talk with them one-on-one. This is another place that money comes to. So the SPAC does come to the grassroots. It also goes to Washington.
Anything else?
Because then I was gonna get on a roll, so.
All right, thank you very much.
Easy to do. Thanks.